So sink and relax. So just feel it as you sink and relax and move into a leg, you are sinking and relaxing, but the leg is getting tense. The leg is coiling up like a spring, storing energy, and then that energy is returned. So it's your upper body that gets relaxed, the lower body gets tight. And just feel the other leg, the leg that does actually loosen. And that expands as it loosens. So relaxation is normally accompanied by a sinking and an expansion. So what we'd like to feel is that I don't just let go at the hip and let the leg go. I let go from the middle of the sacrum. So I want my full and empty alternation to sort of get into my torso. It's not just in the legs. So this whole side of my body is opening up. And then this whole side. It's the same with walking. I mean, I always think walking is the best exercise. And it's basically a spiritual exercise if you do it mindfully. And just let that alternating movement of full and empty really eat into every part of you. So the lightness and the softness is able to express in the empty side. And now let's just move it into like the sumo version. That's it. So the important thing here is just to try and make sure you don't straighten the supporting leg to pick the other foot off the ground. So again, it's full and empty. And then let's just squat. Then up. And then just a few more of these. And then just down again. Whoa. And just rocking forwards, filling the arms up. And then rocking back. Ooh. So just trying to get the hips open really, but also get the sacrum, lower back area spreading. And then up again. And then let's just try some more of these. So it should get a lot easier. The squatting should make this a lot easier. And then just riding horse. With the same feeling of almost like the lower back is bulging back rather than your belly sticking forwards. Okay, now let's just squat down again, but now trying to keep the lower back, trying to keep the back pretty vertical. So you have to come onto the toes. So this is how the sumo guys sort of face off at the beginning, you know, they're sort of glaring at each other. And then they get into their fists on the ground, squat, and then they launch at each other. And so now just coming up and just trying to maintain some sort of vertical. Down again. And up. Down. And up. And one more. And just back into. Okay, now let's just try breathing with it. Again, really sort of focusing on this part where it pulls in, just to get the lower back really sort of flattening out. And just breathing through the small hole, especially when you breathe in, because you want that to really tighten the belly so the belly doesn't flop forwards too much. There's a real change in mood. So here you're a bit like a dog with the tail between its legs. And then here you're a bit like a dog with the tail up, wagging away. But the tail's between your legs, not because you're sad and miserable, but because you're ruthless, because you're inside. You're not afraid to dissociate from the world and just go inside. This is your home. This is a little bit of extra. And then just turn with it. So turning away from the center as you open and turning back to the center as it closes. And again, just feel the turning. You're turning into a spring. And then the spring throws you back to the center. So you're relaxing into tension, the natural springiness of the leg. And then just let the breathing change. So you breathe out as you open. And then you breathe in to spring back to the front and gather. Breathing out, letting everything go. But the leg doesn't let go, obviously, otherwise you'd fall down. So the leg coils up and springs you back. So you're trying to relax the legs in order to access its sort of natural springiness. So it's not forceful. And now let's just yeah, so this really sort of separates the front and the back. So your front is withdrawing, and that's allowing your back to expand out. So just imagine all these ribbons hanging off your back and they're swirling around. So here they're coming out with the arm, but then when I turn here, they wrap around me. So I become enveloped by my own energy. Yeah, so when I turn this way, it throws the arm out, but I get the arm to come in, not by pulling the arm in, but by turning back into it. So just want to feel how it's all coming from the turning. Okay. And now just turning. Yeah, so for me, what's highlighted in this one is the sort of lift, the inner lift that's a consequence of the turning and the sinking. So it's most evident in the arms, and the stronger I turn, the more the arms will fly upwards. But there's something in your core that is lifted when you turn. And just in time, you just get this sense of something, a real lightness hovering in the upper heart, in the thymus. And it's that makes you a bit breathless. So the lift of spirit comes from the turning. This is the main reason turning is so important. And the sinking is really torturing the legs, torturing that natural springiness. Okay, and then just back to riding horse. So we just like to become aware of the different facets of mind. So the only one that tends to be talked about nowadays is the sort of the rational mind. But that's just one facet of it. So it's what the Greeks called logos. So what I call spirit, this sort of lightness that poets are sort of attuned to. So when a poet sees a scene, they see something quite different than the average person because they see the dance of spirit in things. Yeah. So that for the Greeks was an aspect of mind that they called psyche. Yeah. And so psyche also meant butterfly. Yeah. So it's this sort of flitting thing that's beautiful to look at, colorful. So that's what we call spirit. And the spirit or psyche and logos, the rational mind, are anathema. So as soon as you start the rational mind working, spirit flees. Nature loves to hide. So that's our natural aspect. Spirit is our natural aspect. The rational mind has been invented. It's a man-made construct. And then there's another aspect of mind, which what they say is, when the head relaxes, when what we think of as the normal mind, which is up in the head, when that relaxes, then the actual mind will actually leave the head and just permeate the body. It'll just take on the form of the body. And then this is just the natural center. I mean, you don't have to think about mind in Danchen because that's just where it is. Yeah? So what stops mind in Danchen is just the thinking pulling the mind up into the head. So we just want this sense that, when I let go and relax, it's like I just fill up with this energy, really. I just fill up almost like a fluid. And then I'm just much more aware of my body. It's not just a thing that's a bit remote from my head. It's really there. I'm actually in it. It's mine. Yeah. Okay, so let's just try going back and forth. And again, just getting the full and empty. So how can you really let go of that empty side? So it's no longer just the leg from the hip, it's the whole buttock, and the groin area has to just really relax. Because the mind that infuses the body when you relax the head is very fluid. It is like a liquid that just oozes, a melty liquid. And you're no longer aware of joints and hard bones. It's all just soft and gooey. So this sort of hot weather is perfect for it, because you're sort of melting and sweating anyway. Yeah, so we just want to focus on the side that's opening, because we tend to focus on the side that's being strong and supportive, and that means that the opening side never really opens properly. We want to just really let go. So this, everything just lets go down the leg. So what sort of mind can let go at the same time that it's anchoring in the other side? It's just a very playful mind. Okay, let's try the other side. So you always remember, we're working to become softer, and particularly the mind. So a really delicate equilibrium. And that spirit, really, that really light, fragile, balance. Like an ecosystem. So easy to knock it out of balance. That's what the human mind does. It knocks things out of balance. So what we're trying to do is just develop the mind that will actually maintain the equilibrium of the ecosystem. So a compassionate mind. Okay, so let's try the stepping. And again, just using the toes, feeling with the toes before you commit the weight. And again, just really listening with the foot. Imagine you're on a frozen lake, yeah? And you put the toes down, and then as you move the weight across, you're listening for any creaking, cracking sounds with the foot. So you're listening to the thing you're touching. You're not listening to yourself. I'm really attending to that point on the ground that my foot goes down on. It all depends upon that. Yeah, so when you get into a groove or a rhythm, then it becomes more about you, about the energy you're generating, the energy you're enjoying, and less about listening. Okay, so let's try the other leg. And the spirit is in the foot that's stepping. So the foot is like a little butterfly that's flitting from one place to another, like it can't make up its mind. So it just flits to here, and then it settles. Great. Yeah, and spirit is occasional. You can't keep it going for too long, yeah, because it just dulls. So spirit comes up and then it has to subside. And so it's like suddenly appear, suddenly disappear. Suddenly it's there, and then it's not there. Okay, so let's just bring it back. So just feel, so each one of these exercises should just bring the riding horse. Riding horse is a bit like our base camp. It's what we always just come back to. But when we start with it at the beginning of the class, it's like a statue. So by the end of all these sort of delicate exercises we do, it becomes just a massive movement. Matt? And in a sense, the most important part of that movement is the turning. It must feel as though it wants to turn, like it is turning inside itself. There's all these sort of, you're just covered in all these sort of explosions. It's a bit like when you look at someone's skin and they're sweating, you just see like this eruption of this tiny little globule of sweat that then just disappears because it evaporates. Yeah. So it's all over you all the time. That's sensitizing you and waking you up to the spirit around you. So you want you're hunting for spirit, you're listening for spirit. And you want that listening to be of spirit so that it encourages spirit, it enheartens. So instead of nature wanting to hide, nature is drawn out of itself by your listening. And it's difficult because like, as soon as it becomes something, you've lost it. It's always on that edge of between the virtual and the actual, or the potential and the actual. Something is actualizing, but it evaporates as soon as it does. So nothing becomes set and solid. It's like Deleuze's thing, as soon as something becomes actualized, it now impedes the actualization of other things. It becomes like an obstacle. Yeah? And so things are coming out and then things are just going. So negative capability, the ability to just abide in the soup without wanting to stabilize it too much. And you can only do that for like moments at a time, you know? But it becomes like this sort of inspiration. That's what you live for. Those expressions, those moments. So it's just, you know, this acknowledgement that the mundane, the quotidian is somehow just a separate reality to the one that you work for in your own practice. Because this thing of spirit, this thing of just being able to just be there and just let it all dance without having to sort of make it something, it just takes a lot of energy, which most people don't have. You can see it, you know, they sort of, something in them wakens up and then something just flops because they can't keep the energy up. They don't have the ability to just suspend disbelief, yeah? It's like they don't believe in themselves. They don't believe in the best part of them. Okay, let's just bring it back to attention. Yeah, so what, you know, when we bring it back to something like this, which is quite a mundane posture, you know, it doesn't have the stresses of riding horse. Riding horse sort of forces your spirit up a bit because it's quite tricky and difficult. This, it's just like, you know, so what? So you have to find things, little strategies within it that will help the spirit rise a little bit. So you can just be moving leg to leg or just twisting a tiny little bit. Yeah. So it's just full of movement. But the movement's sort of invisible. If someone saw you, you know, you'd have a slight sort of shimmer. There'd be a dance about you. always think of the guy, the drummer in the Stone Roses. He's keeping the beat, but he's got so much movement around it. Yeah. So there's part of him that's just bang, bang, banging, and another part of him that's really sexy and just weaving around. Yeah. So that's what we want. We've got this body that's stuck here like a statue, but part of us is just wriggling and oozing and dancing. Yeah. When you see a good drummer, especially like a good jazz drummer, which for me, that Stone Roses guy is, then they dance, yeah? And they stop dancing when they get into like a rock groove, and they just become stupid. And to play with the beat, that's the sense of humor, really. It's like a dance, like a play. It's like a good drummer is always cheerful because they have to bring everyone else up. Okay, so that's